Okay, my name is Tom Hutchins. I'm the founder of Mandalorian Mercs, and I've brought up here some of our great members from all around the world. We've got April Staines, which is with us she's with Sandhawk Clan, which I'm wearing one of their shirts. Our awesome clan from Australia and New Zealand. She's one of the furthest. She came probably from one of the furthest locations of all of our members. We actually have our clan leader here from our Russian clan, which is over in Moscow. He came too, so we've got people from all over the world here. It's so awesome. This is Eddie Lerma. He's the CEO of our North California clan, Terran clan. And
hey everybody.
This is Anthony Johnson. He's the personnel officer for Mandalorian Mercs. He's the guy when you're up for our approval process. He's the guy you'll either learn to love or hate. You know,
most people hate, but it's
okay. He's got the most underappreciated job in the group. So next, right here we have Emma Swanson. There we go. I don't know why I forgot that all of a sudden. I'm watching the thing down here, so that's why. Emma Swanson is on our approval team. She is from up in Minnesota, and she's one of our only members up in Minnesota area. I know we got people working on it up there, but if you're from Minnesota, get busy. We need more people up in Minnesota, okay? But she's on our approval team. She's one of the people who judge our new applicants' kits as far as how well they look like a Mandalorian, how well they're sticking to our standards, and that kind of thing. This is Sarah Nichols behind Emma, and she was actually our past personnel officer, but she's on the approval team still, and she approves costumes just like Emma and Tony do, and she is one of our very rare early Crusader, which is the ancient Mandalorians from way back in like 30,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. So it's great for all of us to be up here and for them to be here and for you guys to fill up the room. It's awesome. I love standing room only jobs. So I think our PowerPoint here is on automatic cycle. So it doesn't matter, you can look at it or you can hear me talk, one or the other. If you like reading more than you like hearing me talk, then that's all good. Anyway, my name is Tom Hutchins. I am the founder of Mandalorian Mercs. I'm from North Carolina, part of Talon Clan. Yeah, we came a long way. I drove across country to get that big speeder here that's sitting down in our battleship area. It was a very long drive. I think I'm still mostly in North Carolina. Mandalorian Mercs was founded in 2007, mainly because I went to Dragon Con. My wife at the time drug me there. I had never really been to a convention before that, so I was kind of, okay, I'll go. You know, I've always been a huge Star Wars fan. I loved G.I. Joe, all that when I was a kid, you know, G1 Transformers, rock on. So she drug me to Dragon Con, and we had met through Star Wars Galaxies, which, you know, we played for many, many years. I ran a Mandalorian mercenary guild called Mercs. And we went to Dragon Con, and I saw these guys, just like 3 or 4 guys walking around in custom sets of Mandalorian armor that they weren't Boba Fett. And I was like, man, we can do that. I can totally do that. I want to bring my character out of Galaxies and make his armor. So I did. And I found some other people who were like-minded in that, and we said, hey, let's meet up at a convention and just kind of do our own thing. And we did. Other people liked it. They jumped on board, and it pretty much went from there, and you know, from those 3 or 4 people now, we're at 1,200 people worldwide, 1,200 official members, 54 chapters in over 20 countries now. I mean, it's just people ask me all the time, "Did you think it would get this big?" And I say, "There's no way you could ever think anything like that would ever get this big." So yeah, it's very humbling. To be in the Mandalorian Mercs as an official member, as a costumed official member, you have to be at least 18 years old. We are an actual registered nonprofit. We're a 501c4 nonprofit. So we are, you know, we've got all the whole legalized junk, you know, that goes along with that. So you have to be 18 to be a costumed member. You can be under 18 if you have a parent who is an official member already. We don't have many of those. We may have 10, 12 under 18 members because their parents are official members. But we also have a set of standards that you must go by called CRLs. It's Costume Reference Library, or Costume Requirements List. Either way, it's Costume Requirement List for us. It's Costume Reference Library for the 501st and the Rebel Legion, I believe. We just like being different. So. But along those lines, I'm actually going to let Tony talk about that part of it, as far as the how you join up, what we expect as far as the costumes go, and the process for that. So if you go ahead, Tony, take it away.
So guys, with the CRL process, we try to map out as best we can in regards to head to toe. We've got the CRLs on our website listed to where it kind of goes in a little in depth of how your helmet needs to be. If you're using a specific aspect, we have things that are, of course, we don't allow, don't approve. So it's very written out, very thorough. We also have on our command page, on the CRL page, where you can actually PM and ask us questions. It is a difficult process, I'm not going to lie, but it's not an impossible. I never knew how to do any of this. Back in Arkansas, my wife took me to Star Wars, and there's my wife back there. Yeah, yep, she's smiling, shaking her head. Basically, she took me to Star Wars in concert for my birthday, and I saw, I said, man, I want to do this. I've never done anything like this. Never fabricated anything. So it can be done. A lot of people ask me, oh, you've got to have a lot of skill to do this. You really don't. We've got a lot of tutorials. We've got a lot of people who are willing to help. A lot of you are going to have chapters in your area that you can get to. Some of them you got to drive a little bit, but they're all willing to help you, teach you how to do it. And one of the nice things is, this can be done right out, in a small section in your garage, which is a lot of our garages are just nothing but Armour stuff built up all over the place. We've got on the boards, we've got a lot of people who sell helmets, sell different pieces of armor. So it's something very doable, and we're a family-based organization. We're always willing to help each other out. It's not as hard as it looks. When you see it, people ask me, oh, that's got to be a lot of money, it's going to be difficult. It's actually very, very easy. My favorite stuff to use is Sintra, because if it breaks, it costs me $5 to go buy a small piece, and I refabricate it, redo it, and in 20 minutes I can replace that piece. I've been doing it a little while, but it's not that hard, guys. It's really not. And if you have any questions, when we do have the information for the website, I'm over at Cantier on the boards. Any of you can send me a PM. Might take me a little while to get back. I'm pretty backed up from celebration. But we've got a full team that is there just to help everyone build their armor kits and be an assistant, as well as the armor sections on the boards.
Okay, and that's some really great advice there, because, and just to kind of go along with what Tony was saying, Sintra is basically a brand name. It's expanded PVC foam board. So any of you guys might work for a sign shop or work for people that do graphics. That's what we're talking about when we say Sintra. It's just an expanded piece of PVC that works great for bending into the armor plates. But I guess to talk about some things that are going on outside, as far as what Mercs do in other countries. April, would you like to talk about what you guys are doing in Sandhog Clan, just to kind of give people a good idea?
So we tend to be, or our members tend to be closely affiliated with the other clubs, so the Rebel Legion and the 501st. I think I started off as a Rebel Legion member back in 2009, and my son wanted to do an armour costume, and being smaller and growing rapidly, the thing that seemed to work was the Mandalorian costume, because it's a lot easier to fit. You don't have a case where if you're going to make a stormtrooper and you outgrow it in 6 months, as a lot of teenagers would. So it was a practical kind of consideration to begin with. But what I have found since we formed the Sandhawks back in 2011 was just the creativity that this club really embodies. And I've discovered I like making things. I probably always have, and I guess I've always worked in that sort of cottage kind of crafty sort of area and liked doing crafty things. But this brings it a whole new dimension and a whole level of coolness that you're just not going to get in perhaps other genres. So with the Sandhawks in particular, we're a bit isolated. We are literally out in the outer rim, and in the forums you've got to go to the outer rim section. We're up there with all the other outer rim countries. So we kind of just run our own show in a way. We've got a whole bunch of props that we've been making, and I guess our isolation means that we've become a lot more creative in the way we come up with stuff. So we fabricate a whole bunch of stuff ourselves, and I think the thing that was really exciting was that we didn't have to order a whole bunch of stuff from overseas, because freight to Australia is quite expensive. If I were to order a helmet, for example, which may cost you guys $150, including postage, it's $250, plus, the fact that the Australian dollar's worth tacos, it's just not practical sometimes. So the fact that we can actually make this stuff at home is great. So this Armour, which is actually a 501st approved costume, this is Rav Balor, as well as being a Mercs costume, approved costume, has parts of it's actually made from PVC downpipe, which are guttering. I think it does rain here occasionally, right? But those plumbing pipes, it's very cheap, and the fact is that you can create really quite beautiful pieces of armour that look the part, and you can do it cheaply, and you can do it as a community, and you can help your fellow costumers sort of accomplish this. Is just fantastic. One of the big problems we have as a clan is that we are about the size of the United States, but it's one clan. So I actually run the Australian clan, and it becomes troublesome when we have one state that has maybe 1 or 2 members for them to do something like an armour party. So armour parties are a great way of people coming together and having, let's say, a barbecue, and working on a costume together and sharing ideas and skills. And it's very social. And indeed, I find that the Mercs, particularly in Australia, and I suppose it's the same here, is an incredibly social group. We're all a bunch of really good friends. We're all Star Wars nerds, but we're all creative as well, and we just love just seeing what other people have done and how it looks, and sharing ideas and so on and so forth.
Parents, if you have a child that has got ADD, we are the group that child wants to join when they get older. This is how I control my own ADD, because I love to, of course, my attention span is not the greatest, and I love building things. And, when I find myself not being able to focus on things, and I say, I need to build something, and I just build it, and then I find my focus again. So this has been a great outlet for me to be able to, put my creativity out there on something that actually helps not just me, but others as well. So, we do, in Mercs, of course we are primarily a costuming group, but we also do a lot of charity work. We actually manage our own charity fund called Little Warrior International. We do so many different things with that charity fund. Actually, it's grown so much over the years. Our big goal that we do with it is response to events like disasters that affect children. A good example of that would be when the tornado that went through Moore, Oklahoma, and tore up, killed all the kids at the school and just tore the place up. We raised $2,000 in the span of a week and partnered with Feed the Children and threw those kids a back-to-school party. And it was great because, we were able to help the kids kind of adjust back to things. Another thing that we do with LWI is we help other charities. Starting last year, we actually started a yearly $1,000 donation to Rancho Obi-Wan to help fund their outreach programs that they do with kids. I'm sure you guys know Steve Sansweet's Rancho Obi-Wan. They do. They've got several programs where they do outreach programs with the kids in the local area that they're in need in some ways. So just being able to do stuff like that. We have our Christmas project where we'll have our clans adopt a child or families for Christmas that aren't going to get toys, and we'll give them money that we've raised all year through things like we're doing a charity bounty hunt down at our display area, and you'll see that going on. If you're interested in throwing somebody in our jail cell down there and poking at them with sticks and throwing rocks at them, come down there and talk to us about it. But we'll adopt a family or a kid for Christmas. We'll give them toys. We'll make them feel like Star Wars Santa brought. We'll let them know that it's, if Santa may not normally exist for them, it exists in Star Wars. So he brought them presents. But that's just to be able to take your hobby and do something great to help others with a hobby is really cool, because most hobbies are not like that. You sit in your house and you're fixing whatever, or you're putting something together, but you don't really think that the byproduct is going to be as good as it is. So, Eddie, why don't you talk about some of the stuff that you guys are doing here in California?
Yeah, I mean, it's not much different than what April was saying. Northern Cal is kind of a larger part, especially when there's 2 other clans in the southern part. And we've been kind of growing recently, so doing more charity. We do the Oakland's Children's Hospital every year. We do a charity Christmas parade at the end of the year, which is like our annual full get-together clan. And we've been moving up like that, doing more charity events like Secret Santa and things like that for the Salvation Army, and just kind of helping out kids. And we do promotional birthday parties for certain kids and events. Like we just did one for a little boy named Jonathan. He's 6 years old, and he had cancer since he was 4, and he didn't have a birthday party. He didn't celebrate a birthday party for 2 years, and he really liked Star Wars. Once he came into remission, his parents were like, "Hey, can you guys come and be part of it?" So we went. Some of my friends kind of moved it through for getting it out on the media and things like that. And trying to have Armour parties was always a bit tough in the beginning because there wasn't a lot of people. It'd be like me and maybe 2 of my friends in my garage hanging out, and trying to do that and try to sound professional to bigger organizations. Well, hey, look, I'm part of the Mandalorian Mercs, and people would be like, well, who's that? So it was just trying to move it through. We started doing more walks and little events in San Francisco, Sacramento. Thank you. I was wondering why I wasn't too loud, but everyone heard what I was saying, right? Okay, cool, right, okay. So we do that. We bounce up and down all over to California for pretty much any event. We'll go from up in Redding all the way down to LA to join with our LA clan sometimes. But we've actually spread. I make fun of my clan because I say it's like the 7 kingdoms. Each area has like a known part of the clan that's growing. We're 28 members now in my clan, and I'm happy about that. Hopefully there'll be more, and we do a little bit more. We're getting more backdrops, and we're doing the Intergalactic Expo in Sacramento for May the 4th, which we're going to be raising money with them and the Sacramento Children's Hospital combined with that. So I'm really excited. And I mean, yeah, that's pretty much how we run it and things like that goes through.
That's one thing about when you talk to people from our different clans pretty much around the world, they all have this in common, where they're all working together to build their costumes, they're all working together on charity events, they're all working together to basically spread their love of Star Wars and do something cool with it. And that is something that we all come from different walks of life, but we all share that in common. That's kind of our uniting factor in Mercs, is that we all love Mandos and we all love Star Wars, and we all enjoy helping each other so that other people can do what we do. And just we all have that in common, and if everything else was totally different, that would be the one thing we could all agree on. We really have no enemies because we are all brothers and sisters doing something that we love. So that's really cool. If I'm not big on politics, but maybe we should teach people up in run the place about that. Emma, you want to talk about maybe the canon costumes we do, since you're wearing a Sabine?
Yeah. I actually just finished this, literally yesterday, 2 hours before I got on a plane, so I don't know much about canon costumes yet. But the Mercs, obviously, is mostly a custom club where you make custom costumes. And I do have a custom Mandalorian as well. But, if there are Mandalorian characters in the Clone Wars or the movies, those are also, you can get double membership with the Mercs, as well as the Rebel Legion of the 501st. Like Sabine, she can be approved in Rebel Legion as well as the Mercs. So canon process is a bit more difficult. You're put through, the rigor, unlike the regular CRLs, which give you a lot of creative freedom, because obviously the Mercs is built around this concept of being able to design your own character that you've always wanted and making it come alive. canon costumes, you're obviously going to be put through the same sort of, 501st level CRL approval process where you have to be, super accurate. So
one of the things that a lot of people don't know when they sign up for Mercs is that, we judge costumes almost like a piece of art. It's kind of like judging a piece of living art, because nobody really looks the same unless you join as a Boba Fett or a Jango Fett or something like that. Everybody looks different, and their armor may be completely different and something we've never seen before. Their helmet may be customized in a way that we've never seen before. I mean, take this is an early Crusader helmet right here in the middle. That's very customized looking. I mean, there's very few actual references for the early Crusaders. So there's kind of you can kind of get away with quite a bit there. But the one thing about the approval process is that we don't, we try to keep it to where we're trying to hold what we feel is what's in the spirit of Mandalorians to and that is the difficult part. It's hard for us to tell you, hey, you're not quite ready yet, you need to fix this or fix that, because we're basically judging your work on a piece of art, and nobody likes to hear that their work is, it's not ready yet. But that's part of it. We take our standards very seriously. It's something that those evolve even over the years. We change, our CRLs get fine-tuned a little bit each year. Sometimes throughout the year, if we have new information that comes up about Mandalorians, with them taking the expanded universe and making that Legends now, the new expanded universe, we don't know what's in store. I mean, we know that Sabine is the first Mandalorian that we know of in the new Star Wars universe. So we don't.
And Bo-Katan.
Well, and Bo-Katan, that's right, in the new Star Wars universe. So we don't know what's in store for us. Well, the Sons of Dathomir comics, there was at least one other female, but there was several custom Mandos in that one as well. But we really don't know what's in store for us as far as what the movies are going to hold, what future television shows or future Rebels episodes are going to hold for us. I mean, it may totally redefine what we know of as Mandalorian armor, and although we just kind of sit here and shake at the thought of that, I mean, it's a very real possibility. That's one of those things where we don't have that luxury that the 501st and the Rebel Legion do, where theirs is set and it's always set to be that way, and if it changes, they still have their old way. We're in kind of a category where our old way has kind of been pushed to the side, and we may have a whole new way of having to do things. So, that's the danger of costuming outside of the norm, that you're used to with the canon costumes. But of course, it opens up that lane for creativity again. Mm-hmm. So, Sarah, why don't you talk about your early Crusader and how you did that? Because that's one of the, in my opinion, the harder costumes to do, because the references are so few. And she was actually our first early Crusader. I don't think we had an actual early Crusader before she made one. So,
and I think that's what drove me to pick this costume, is that there wasn't one, and it's so rare within the club. Whereas it's like the last celebration picture, you can pick me out immediately because I stand out like a sore thumb. But I actually think it's probably easier than a modern kit, in my opinion, because you can just slap the Bondo on and sand it down a little bit and it looks organic. Whereas with a modern kit, you have to make sure everything is symmetrical and even. And so, I mean, in my opinion, I just think it's a little bit easier. But when I built mine, that's basically what it's, fiberglassed and bondoed and sanded and painted to look like bone. I mean.
And the leather work that she did is phenomenal. I mean, that the leather work coupled with the organic bone sort of look. We go by eras in Mercs as far as their costumes go. We have you have the early Crusader, which is the oldest. It's basically the ancient Mandalorians, like you have the helmet here and the helmet that Sarah's got. And then you've got we call them the late era Crusaders, but most people know them as the Mandalorian Crusaders from like the Mandalorian Wars, the Great Sith War, that kind of stuff. Roland Dyer, if any of you guys have read Knights of the Old Republic, those are the late era Crusaders. And then of course you've got the Neo Crusaders, which everybody knows who they are. They've got the cowls. They look like the Imperial Guard. but they're blue, they're yellow, they're white, or they're red, and they don't really have there's not a lot of color deviation from them. They're very uniform. And then after that, you've got the modern Mandalorians, which are like Boba Fett, Jango Fett, Jaster Muriel, those guys, like what April's wearing down there, the Rav Brailer costume, where, everything is symmetrical. You've got the T-visor. I mean, you know that's a Mandalorian when you see it. And then after that, we do have kind of a subgroup of the modern era called Legacy. Those of you that read Star Wars Legacy comics probably remember the Hondo Carr. He was a Mandalorian, and there was one comic that showed the Mandalorians of the Legacy era, which had like a segmented type armor. It was almost looked like a carapace, like a beetle carapace, where you had the full chest and then segmented plates below that, and everything was very overlapping. And we have a few people that do that. That's somewhat popular armor for those of us bigger guys, that might need a little bit more armor than others. That seems to work well for that. But Legacy, and it's a little bit more comfortable because it is hinged, so you can bend with it and that kind of thing. But the modern armor is definitely our flagship set, the Boba Fett / Jango Fett Death Watch style. That's what you're going to see the most of. We have a ton of customized helmets out there that you can buy as kits from various different vendors. I can name several. There's Stalker, there's the Assassin, there's the Destroyer. I think they used to have the Destroyer. There's I know Zaz makes the the Starbreaker. He does a Crate Dragon helmet. There's 1,000,001 different. You've got the Sabine helmet. There's the Night Owl helmet. There's the Death Watch Season 1 helmet, or Season 2 helmet, the Death Watch Season 4 and 5 helmet, the Pre-Vizsla helmet. I mean, you can go on and on. There's 1,000,001 different helmets out there you can buy, and then you can paint them up the way you want them to. You can put greeblies, which are like little doodads, and, all kinds of different little things you can use as yeah. I mean, it's just, that's just unlimited. It's basically your imagination. So, that's pretty much what we do as far as the Mercs go. We're a little more centralized as far as groups go. We have our local chapters, which we call clans. After Celebration, we're getting ready to roll out a new type of chapter called a Stronghold, which is for areas that have like less than what is it? It's 1 to 6.
1 to 6.
1 to 6 members. We used to do something called squads, but squads it just never worked out very well. So we're rolling out Strongholds, so if you're the only person in your country that's a member of Mercs, or the only person in your state that's a member of Mercs, then you would be in a Stronghold. And Mercs is ran by a central council, that's an appointed council. We have several different administrative teams, our teams, and PR teams, and it's almost like running a business. I mean, it literally is like running a corporation. When you think about it at that level, which is sometimes a little scary, but
And the amazing thing about this, everyone, is it's all volunteer.
yeah, we don't get paid.
All volunteer, and there's a lot of hours spent on it. So that's what's amazing is, these two are on my team, and we push ourselves really hard to get the applications out really quick. So the fact that it's volunteer, it just adds to that level of sacrifice that the club really does at all different levels to make sure that we're helping everyone out, the charity work, getting everything organized. It's a lot of work that goes into it.
I mean, and that's the same thing with our local clan leaders. They're putting in untold amount of hours growing their local clans and getting out there doing armor parties and doing events. And, it's tough. I mean, the people think that, leadership within a volunteer group like this, oh, well, it's just a name. It doesn't mean anything. It's a lot of work, because if you're passionate about the group and you want to see the group succeed, you're going to invest a lot of your personal time into it. And your only real return is seeing how the folks around you, how they enjoy it. That's your return. How much are my, my clanmates enjoying things? Or if these guys are having fun, and then I know I've done my job right. That whole big display we've got down there, the fact that we got that done, that wasn't a one-man show. We had a lot of people that came together to make that happen. And you have to have a certain amount of love and the willingness to sacrifice a certain amount of your time and a certain little part of yourself to make something like this function. because it's not, it's definitely not ice cream and cupcakes at the end of the day. I mean, I wish it was. I love ice cream. So, I mean, But anybody have any questions so far? There's a lot of people here, so I'm sure there's some questions. So don't let gravity work too hard on you. No questions yet?
What do you start with?
What do we start with?
What's the best piece of armor to start with?
The helmet.
Yeah.
I think just about everybody will agree that the helmet is the best place to start, because once you finish your helmet, you can kind of look at it and see the rest of your character just kind of create itself as you look at the helmet. That's how I started. And I was able to, I had a picture of my character from Star Wars Galaxies, but the helmet was like, man, that's him, and then you can start to see the rest of him.
Alternatively, I never start with the helmet because that's usually an investment that you're going to want to like save up for and spend something on, and it's difficult. I always start with just like the armor, so I can get a sheet of Sintra or get a sheet of metal, and there's a ton of work in front of me at that point because you have this open sheet and you have a ton of armor that you can make with it, so that gives you a lot to do all at once. So that's where I start anyways.
And to compound on that, a lot of the stuff you're going to have in your closet. Boots. You don't actually have to do a flight suit as long as it looks like a flight suit. I've got 5'11" pants, and you get a 5'11" top, and it looks just like a flight suit. As long as it's made to integrate the middle, you pretty much just hide that with the belt, and it looks like a flight suit. So a lot of the stuff you have at the house, you don't actually have to go out and buy all new stuff. And the nice thing is, the more worn it looks, the better it's going to look when you put your character.
Well, we call that weathering. You want to, we do have some members who like to keep their stuff nice and clean and pristine. There's nothing wrong with that. They're just dedicated to shining their shoes. But there's something about a kit that looks like it was lived in, that looks like it's been through, the Battle of Yavin. There's something about that gives the costume a bit of character and depth that a non-weathered costume has. It's just, it just has a little bit more life. There's stories behind those scratches. There's also different materials you can make your armor out of. The most common, of course, is the Sintra, the expanded PVC foam board. Some people use what we call trash can plastic, which is basically like Rubbermaid bins. That I have found is a little bit more difficult to use because the molecules in it will not let it. It likes to keep that the straight or either the edge curve. It doesn't like to be molded into things. It wants to pop out a lot. But it's really super thin. So if you are like a super thin person and don't have a lot of chest or belly or anything, it might work okay on you. If you're curvy, maybe not so much. My personal favorite, those of you guys who might read my blog on StarWars.com, I have a metal armory literally next to my house. I do metal armor. It does get very heavy. My own kit weighs in around 80 pounds. It gets pretty heavy. You wear it for a few hours and you're ready to go sleep for a week. So,
what kind of metal do you use?
It depends on who I'm making it for. On my personal armor, I use a 14 gauge aluminum for the chest plates and then 18 gauge steel for everything else. So yeah, and then the leather is actually more heavy than the armor is. I use a lot of authentic leather for my girth belt. It's the girth belt rig alone with the holsters is like 30 pounds. So leather is way more heavy than metal is. So you'll find that out if you use real leather. But other people, you can use the bucket plastic, like the thing is called Kedex, that they make buckets out, like water buckets. You can use that kind of plastic. That's super duper durable. Some people use, like April was talking about, PVC pipe, the plumbing pipe. You can get the big thick or the big round PVC pipe. Draw your templates on that, cut them out, use a heat gun, heat them up.
It just depends what you're working on too, because you can use different material for different parts of the costume. For example, Pepakura is probably okay for a helmet, and you've got to probably size the helmet and so on. Particularly if you've got a very large head.
Explain what Pepakura is.
So Pepakura is folded paper basically. It's like I guess you would get a 3D model, a computer model, and they then render it as paper. You cut it out, you fold it, you glue it, and then you cover it in Bondo or fiberglass or whatever you want to use. And it's a technique that you can have a look on the forums. There's heaps of people that use it. That's good for things like helmets. It may be okay for gauntlets, but things like chest armor, it's just going to be really heavy. And you're much better off using things like Sintra or aluminium. Say aluminium, not aluminium.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You're foreign, it's okay.
And all these the bucket things. Oh, actually, I would never recommend using the bucket stuff because it's actually more expensive to buy buckets than it is then to just get other material. And you're right, it doesn't heat very well. You need to buy like a heat gun or something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to use aluminum, sorry, I got it right.
That's okay. You can say we know what aluminium is.
Just be careful about your ears. Just wear ear protection because you can
and
go
eye
deaf.
protection.
And eye protection.
I weld all my gauntlets are about 15 pieces of metal welded into one big piece, and I actually got a piece of bronze in my eye one time, and I was wearing eye protection, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And it got in my hair, and when I went to take a shower, it fell off. Sorry, Law and Order. It fell out of my hair into my eye while I was taking a shower, and it took me about 3 days before I realized I got to go to the doctor to get this thing taken out. It was not fun.
Yeah.
Not fun.
So then there's other techniques too, and there's new emerging technologies. So the whole 3D printing thing is also starting to take off. For certain things it works well, other things resin and helmets and so on, and it just really depends.
3D printed thermal detonator right here.
Yeah.
You can 3D print anything.
So one of the and these sort of things are getting shared through the community. Like my gauntlets are all 3D printed. They're very light and very durable. So there's a whole bunch of different technologies. It's about finding the right thing to do for what you want it for and what you're capable of doing. So my suggestion, particularly in Merc costumes, if you're doing your own custom Mando, is do what you're comfortable with, what you think you can actually achieve. Hit that milestone, become official, and what you'll find is people are never comfortable with just getting that one status. You're constantly upgrading. Like I've just sold my legacy kit because I want to make another one. I love the art of fabricating these costumes. It is a lot of fun. So you constantly you can change armor without it because it's not necessarily canon. You can change armor pieces and I constantly upgrade and have freedom to do so. So if I want to change my gauntlets from having rockets to having maybe 2 rockets, one on each arm, I can, and I can make that at another point. But that may not be my entry level. I may just have to meet the criteria for my CRL. I may not need to do that.
Everybody starts at their own level. I mean, and the one great thing about this is that we encourage you to submit your approval at a basic level. We would rather see you get the basics right than try to blow everything out of the water or reinvent the wheel, because 99.9% of the time when you apply trying to reinvent the wheel runs over you. I mean, totally. You just don't do it. You just don't. It never comes out like you want it to. You see it in your imagination, but then you put it down on in the real world completely wrong. So yeah, get the basics right, and everything else will fall into place over time. We have a kind of it's above the basics sort of part of Mercs called the brigades. It's a profession-based group, and it's only open for official members, but it allows you can pick a profession that has a list of fixed items that the members within those professions have said, yes, these are the items that this profession would use, like a sniper or a recon or a Jedi hunter, certain things like that. And that seems to work well for a lot of people. A lot of people have really liked doing that because it doesn't necessarily take the thinking out of, or the creativity process out of stuff, but it gives them guidelines and points them in the right direction to look to create these items that they can use without them looking like a bunch of glued together stuff in a wad of goo. Because we do get that sometimes, and it's, yeah.
And guys, if you plan on doing a costume, please be careful. Like, there's kind of a learning curve with it, especially if you've never used tools or box cutters to get the armor out. Like, I have a construction background, and I still stab myself and burn myself constantly. So be careful, mind what you're doing. Keep it, like, when you start off, I started off very simple because I didn't know how to do this particular thing. So, I cut open my hand, I stabbed my thumb, I just burned myself last night. Okay, now I've been making armor for my clan for like 6 years now. So
Oh yeah.
it happens. Just be very careful, and it's supposed to be fun. So make your imagination come to life and share it with others.
Hot glue. That's my worst enemy. Let me tell you, you've never burnt yourself as bad as you'll burn yourself with hot glue because it's like napalm. You cannot get it off. I burnt myself the other day with it, and I'm just now looking at where the skin's starting to come off. I mean, it's not good. I don't like hot glue.
I've had 2 different reactions when I burned myself with hot glue. Either you like immediately were like you want to yell at it, or you just kind of stare at it and you're like, that burns.
Yeah,
like you
because
can't actually
take it off. If you try to take it off, you'll burn more of your fingers. Like no.
Yeah, and like this week we were working on Armour, and one of my new members, he's hot gluing a piece, and he started to blow on it to try to cool it down, and he got it on his lip. Oh! He got hot glue on his lip, and all I'm seeing is I'm cutting on the table. All I see is this. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I burned my lip with the hot glue. I'm like, thanks,
wow.
dude.
That's
Appreciate
a first in 8 years of doing this. I've never heard of somebody burning their
But
lip
honestly,
with
he
hot glue.
hurt himself a lot this week. That's why I wanted to make sure I said that for when we were promoting making your armor. Just be careful.
All right, go
What's the
ahead.
easiest thing to start working with? Aluminum,
Centra, probably. I mean,
Centra's the easiest because if you mess it up, it's cheap. You can get an 8x4 sheet for 20 something bucks. It depends on your region, but I've never seen anywhere more than 30 bucks. And that's just 3 millimeter. Terran Clan, which is what Eddie and them work with, is 6 millimeter. It looks really gnarly. It looks really thick, but it's a little tougher to work with. I always suggest 3 millimeter in the beginning because it's easier to shape, it's cheap, and if you break it, you just cut on a sheet and just redo it again.
sign shop. If you have sign shops nearby, a lot of times they use that expanded PVC foam board for their like signs. They'll give you scraps. One of my clients is a sign shop, and they give me scraps, and I've got so much like a pile of Centra sitting at the house for new recruits, and I just give it to them like, here, let's make you some entry-level armor,
So do we have anyone from overseas, or are we all anyone from Australia? Because it's known as something else. It's known as 4X in Australia. 4X, yeah. So don't look for Century, you'll never find it.
Yeah, even here in Northern California, I tried going around. Hey, I went to a plastic store and I was like, "Can I get some Centra board?" And they looked at me like I asked to fly to the moon or something. And I'm sitting there like, "Did I do that wrong?" And like Tom was saying earlier, Centra is a brand of foam PVC. So you want foam PVC. And when entry, it's basically what your skill level is. I'll have people, hey man, I want to do metal armor because metal armor is awesome. It's really realistic. But me, I don't have a lot of experience with metal, and that's the question I ask when people ask me, should I get metal armor? It's like, do you know how to work with it? Because if you don't, then you can waste a lot of money on it.
Yeah,
So-
I started with aluminum. I just jumped right into it because I had all of my grandpa's old tools. So I was self-taught, but it definitely took me probably like a good year of just practicing and throwing things out because I'm a perfectionist until I felt like I was good enough to actually make armor that was quality to put on a costume. It was worth it because that's what I wanted, but yeah.
Question over there.
I have a comment actually. If you're at altitude, Centra will collapse on itself. ABS is a wonderful alternative.
We've had a lot of issues with Centra in Colorado just because it's manufactured at a much lower altitude, so when you heat it up with an oven, heat gun, anything like that, it just
Pressure.
You get like
The pressure
one
change,
heat
yeah.
and then it's dead.
The one thing about AVS though, guys, is I'm a guy who's got some curves. I got a belly. Okay, it don't fit too well on me, and I know this because I called Tom several times in my second armor build, working with one of Red Crate Dragon's AVS, and I couldn't bend it. I actually ended up cracking it trying to get it to fit. So AVS is really good. It's actually what my lower armor is all made out of, but when it comes to chest armor, I always go with Centra because if it cracks, which it happens all the time at a troop, and you do enough that something's going to break. It's just easy to replace. But yes, but the nice thing about Centra, it never burns. I mean,
when it comes to like ABS too, it's a really good alternative, but it's an item that's meant to have like a vacuum formed heat table where it heats up evenly across the board. So if you try to like reshape it to yourself, if like you bought one, it's gonna like wave up. It'll shrink on you. It'll melt. That's a good thing about Centra. Centra takes a really long time to melt. I threw a piece of Centra in a fireplace, and it literally didn't melt for an hour. Like I'm sitting there, I'm like, why didn't it melt? And I go to stab it with like the fire poker, and all it did was like it was soft and it just moved around the poker. So I was like, hey, I'm fireproof. It's actually pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, I don't know about to go that far, but yeah. I have more questions.
I'm not gonna stand in the
but I don't have time
fire
here.
though.
Go ahead.
Have you thought about using Orbla or?
Yeah.
Is that enough?
Some people use that. I know it's those thermoplastics get kind of expensive, so I'm sure I've never. Go ahead.
So girls will probably identify with this, but to try and get chest armor to fit if you're slightly bigger can be quite tricky. So I actually made a mold of my chest using Warbler, but Warbler itself is just not strong enough. I live in Australia and it's like one hot day and it's melted. If I leave it in the car, it just turns to mush. So it's just not durable enough. So fiberglass over the Warbler and then just pull the Warbler away. So that's probably one way. You can shape it exactly as you need it because it's really easy to work with, but it becomes a disposable. It's quite an expensive way to do it. If you're only doing it for a small area like a chest, it's fine. But if you're doing something that's really organic, I've seen some amazing kind of organic pieces, like some of this armor you'll probably be able to do using Warbler if you wanted to, because you're able to shape it. And it retains its heat. Now this is the important thing, why ABS has got a bit of a problem. ABS tends to not maintain its heat as well as some other materials, which is why Formex is so good, which is why PVC tends to be quite good. It's just, it tends to cool down too quickly, or if you're just using a heat gun or something that's not professional, which is what a lot of us have, it's just, you can't heat a large enough area evenly. So, but Warbler's great. But I wouldn't actually have a final product in Warbler unless it's decorative or non-load bearing.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left, so that's probably time enough for 2 more questions. So I'll get you right there.
Just fundamentally, best piece of advice you give to anybody starting out?
Patience. Have lots of patience and research what you want to do before you do it. Don't try to build as you're imagining it. I mean, go out there and look and see what's going to work best for you. But patience, I tell people all the time, the best piece of advice anybody can give you is to be patient. Don't try to rush it. Set a realistic goal. If you wanted to have a kit for celebration, you should have started that kit like a year ago, realistically, not 5 weeks ago, because that's just not realistic. I mean, that's good if you wanted to do Halloween, but if you want to do a professional costume, just be patient, give yourself lots of time to do it. It's not a race. Mercs is going to be around here for a long time, as far as I know. So, go ahead, you got a question.
Are there any Seattle or Vancouver area clans?
Vancouver falls in the Hetsiri clan, I believe, which is, they're pretty much our West Coast Canada clan. They're Alberta and British Columbia. I think those two are right next to each other, aren't they? Yeah, okay, there you go. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been to Vancouver. But yeah, Hetsiri clan. You want to look them up. And you can find all this information on our website. It's www.mandalorianmercs.com or .org. Either one. Any more questions? I think we may have time for one more question. Go. Good.
Right. I know that for the area that I live in, there's not a whole lot of costuming groups out there because we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
What area?
We live in Idaho.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. We have nobody in Idaho. We have lots in Utah, but nobody in Idaho.
Well, this kind of poses a problem. You pros, you've got a lot of guys that do armor parties, and I've read about it. Everybody gets together and houses to build their armor. Well, with nobody in the area, it makes it hard to do that. So are there like tutorials and stuff that other clans around the areas will post online that we can go and look at on how to form certain things?
Emma can answer this.
Up in Minnesota, when I was first making my costume, there was nobody to go to. I built mine basically in a void. So it's completely possible to teach yourself, get it to quality, get approved, and do everything. So our forums are like, if you haven't joined our forums and you're interested in Mercs, I don't know what you're doing, because like our forums is like, that's where everything happens. It's really active, it's really like community oriented. start a whip thread, a work in progress thread, and just post progress. And there's always people who will come and post on it. And there's tons of tutorials. Look at other people's work because that will give you ideas on how to do it. So yeah, there's all the resources you need are on the Mercs forums, and it's totally possible to use those and build a kit like in a void.
And you can download, we have the patterns for Armour and everything. You can download them, print them out, cut them out of whatever material you're looking to cut them out of and go from there. Okay, we'll do one more question. This is the last question. I saw your hand up earlier. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering what some of your guys' favorite details or customizations that you've seen.
Oh gosh, I don't know if we have enough time for that question.
That's a pretty extensive question. I mean, you can go if you need to go to our photo gallery. You need to go, because there's just so many things. Gauntlets can do some amazing, crazy stuff.
Our Facebook page also has tons of pictures. Just look up Mandalorian Mercs Costume Club on Facebook. You will see tons of pictures of what people do. There's so many customizations out there. It's impossible for me to just pick one and say that's my favorite. I'll pick my own then. If that's I'm my own favorite.
Yeah, helmets and like paint scheme is like my favorite thing. If someone comes up with an amazing helmet like this one, it's like, dude, that's amazing. Or like a really good paint job where he looks like you were out of the movies and you just admire how they work. Like the paint scheme and helmet and custom helmet is like my favorite parts.
Weathering is mine. I just like to see weathering because I vision a Mandalorian out there doing work. And if he's doing work, he's not going to be clean. So if someone's got a really well-weathered kit, I'm blown away.
All right, guys, that's all we've got. We really appreciate y'all coming out. Thanks for having us. We look forward to seeing you on our forums and joining up with us.